conversation. I'd like to say this is the new conversation between Console Strategy and Brewer Pratt Solutions. But actually, we've been doing this for quite a while now, so I feel like I should know this introductory spiel off by heart. Actually, Lisa, I feel that I don't need a script anymore, and yet I still don't. I still don't feel comfortable at the start of it. Association transformation, we are all about sharing good ideas, sharing problems, sharing challenges, anything that's to do with the not-for-profit world, the association world, not just here in the UK or across the pond in the United States. We want to talk and share with everybody as far and as wide as we possibly can. I am Andrew Chamberlain, and I'm the Managing Director of Console Strategy.
And I'm Elisa Pratt, the founder and CEO of Brewer Pratt Solutions.
And as I say, every week with our special guests, we aim to take a deep dive into the issues, the topics, the opportunities facing our community.
We've seen just about everything, and given the challenges and uncertainty that the pandemic has brought, we've been talking a lot about and having different conversations with those who have really embraced the power of partnerships. I don't know if this is something that really has been around forever, and now it's just becoming a tool in the toolbox of surviving the COVID pandemic. But I knew exactly who I wanted to talk to when we kicked around this idea. From
But
Capitol Hill.
unfortunately, they weren't available. Is that what you were going to say then? Sounded like you were going
Thanks for welcoming our guests so warmly, Andrew. But we've known each other for probably longer than we'd like to admit. And Mike Bober, the president and CEO of the Pet Industry Joint Advisory Council, is the master of coalitions and collaborations. And I'm really excited he's able to join us today, hot off his speaking tour at the ASAE annual meeting. Mike, thanks for joining us. Welcome to this transatlantic conversation, and we'll keep Andrew at bay.
Thanks for having me. What can I say? I had nothing better to do.
Join the club,
Perfect.
Mike. Join the club. This is pretty much where the association transformation came from. Honestly, it's funny. I kind of feel like we are the embodiment of partnership, aren't we? Transatlantic, with the transatlantic partners who are setting the precedent here. I think
You're right. We're living this. We're living this every day, every pod. And when you talk about bringing together odd partners, I think Andrew and I might be the example of that.
was I talking about that? I don't think I said that, but all right, okay, yeah, odd partners. I'll go with that.
But Mike has a really diverse industry, has diverse stakeholders, and maybe he can share a little bit with us about bringing together all those varied interests and how kind of messy but also impactful that can be.
Absolutely, yeah. We at the Pet Industry Joint Advisory Council represent all aspects of the pet care community. So that means that we've got participants in our work who are breeders and distributors of animals. We have retailers of both food products and animals. We've got food and product manufacturers, distributors, transporters, you name it. And like you said, Elisa, that creates situations where there are constituencies that have different needs, and sometimes those needs are even at odds with one another.
Well, and partnerships in these, as we refer to them, coalitions or collaborations aren't just for small organizations. I mean, you're an industry, you're representing a multi-billion-dollar industry. And yet there's different voices, there's different segments. And I think bringing that together, maybe you don't get the credit you deserve, is as much of an art, if not a science.
There's definitely an art to it. I think it really does come down to finding common ground as a starting point, and that's really one of the challenges that I think makes getting coalitions off the ground difficult in the first place. Is that we all know who else is out there in our adjacent industry sectors. We know people who have similar interests, maybe 25% of the time, 50% of the time. The trick is getting everybody to the table to kind of start with that, and then to figure out how you can kind of stretch the boundaries beyond it.
Yeah, I think I often think collaboration or coalition partnership. Sometimes I feel like we pay lip service to it almost. That it's kind of it's understood as as a nice concept, but then when
Hmm.
economic realities come into play, it just feels like, well, actually, maybe this isn't really the partnership we were talking about. Maybe we just wanted friendship. Instead, it's we just want to be friends. We just want to be mates. We just want to have a drink together. We don't necessarily actually want the same thing. Out of curiosity, Mike, how big is your advisory council? How big is it?
Well, we're a membership organization, a 501c6 under the American Tax Code. And because of that, we have dues paying members, several hundred. But the reality is, we operate really, in a sense, as almost the government affairs department for the entire pet care community. So we actually have several larger supporters, other associations in the space, the American Pet Products Association, the World Pet Association, and the Pet Industry Distributors Association. And each of them has membership in the thousands, if not tens of thousands. So we, either directly or tangentially represent a large number of both big and small companies across the country.
Yeah. I mean, they embody the coalition, they embody the partnership, and it's amazing to see, especially as a small staff. I don't think Mike and his team get credit for all that they do, but the partnerships and leveraging all those stakeholders, it just allows you to be bigger than you are. And I know of several organizations that are trying to expand that footprint and maybe present a larger voice than they might actually be, and these partnerships allow that.
Yeah, but I'm gonna, just this.
Oh,
Is it
wait,
worth?
hold on. Here comes the
Uh
contrarian.
oh.
Hold on.
No, no. Is it worth it? Is it
Ah,
worth it? I
see?
mean, that's like I say. We all look. We all know that on the surface, collaboration, that's a good thing. Partnership, yes, absolutely. That's what we're all about. That's what this pod is about. It's about sharing ideas, sharing uh, problems. It's about sharing, finding solutions together. Is it
Well,
worth
I,
it?
Is
I,
it
I
worth
appreciate
it? Is it
I
worth it?
appreciate you sharing your problems with me, but
Yeah, I mean, let me tell
no,
you, if you
I
could just mute a minute, Elisa, and I'll just tell you, Mike. Oh my God,
would you like to lay down? Would that make you more comfortable?
that's right. Yeah, just look on the couch here.
No, it's a good question, Andrew, and I'm glad you circled back around to it because the trick of coalitions is that it really is hard to put metrics on them. It's hard to measure the hard dollar value of coalition work. It's one of those things that I think there's a soft measure for it, and it's if you get people in a room talking about it, they'll tell you they know it when they see it. They'll
Mm,
also know it by its absence. And
yeah.
the real trick of coalitions isn't necessarily the ROI. It isn't necessarily the value it brings to it. It's the cost that comes from its absence.
Is it really about defining the goal in advance? And you mentioned commonality of interests. Is it about a clear definition of not just how you're going to get there, but what you're trying to accomplish together?
I think in some cases it absolutely is. If there's a coalition that comes together around a specific issue, a particular goal, then absolutely keeping that shared purpose in mind from beginning to end is always going to be the difference between success and failure. But I think there are other coalitions really that come about because you have organizations of like purpose, organizations of affinity that are working side by side in the space, and there are opportunities there to really have kind of a force multiplier effect, or at least to avoid redundancies. If you are doing a better job of communicating with one another on an ongoing basis, to me, that's kind of the type of coalition that you really have a harder time quantifying, but it's even more valuable. If I've got a clear line of sight to what somebody who's working side by side with me but isn't necessarily regularly keeping me up to speed is doing, I'm going to have a much better chance of not stepping on their toes, not accidentally getting in their way, and frankly, not wasting my time and budget on stuff that they're already doing well.
Well, and you mentioned budget, and we brought this up in the context of the pandemic and maybe the challenges to revenue streams these days. Are there chances to share costs, or is that just a myth amongst coalitions?
Oh no, there absolutely is, especially if you're working on one of those coalitions that comes together around a joint purpose. It may very well be that you've got an organization. Actually, I worked for a time with one of the party committees in the United States, and one of my jobs was to work with candidates to help them identify local coalitions that they could build. We would tell them to look for 3 M's. Anybody that you wanted to bring into your coalition had to bring one of the M's to the table. Those M's were money, messaging, or manpower. And the trick is to figure out who each of the people at the table are and what their strengths represent. If I've got a group that's got a grassroots network of 10,000 people that I can mobilize, that's a manpower resource. If I've got a group that's got somebody funding it with deep pockets and they can pay for on-air advertising and things like that, that's a combination of messaging and money. You need to make sure that everyone is defining what they bring to the table and then is committing to delivering it.
I wonder, based on the evaluation of each person's asset or each person's strength. And in my experience, in especially the trade association world, there's always a little bit of a dance as to who's leading. Who's leading, who's following to the music, and is it a matter of who forms the coalition, who asks and invites the others, or does there need to be a real designation of who a coalition leader is?
Yes. The answer to that is both. In some cases, a coalition is going to form up around the person who takes the initiative to create it, or the organization. In other cases, you're going to sit down and everybody's going to put their cards on the table, and it's going to become very clear that one group has the natural lead, whether it be because of connections that they've got, whether it be because they've got an articulated strategy in place, that it makes sense for them to captain the fight. I think it really just comes down to what the assets are that everybody's laid on the table.
Yeah, but doesn't this all just presume that people aren't involved in this process?
Yeah, it does.
I mean, because the reality is when people get involved, things go pear-shaped. It's the truth of the matter, isn't it?
You're right.
Personalities in politics get involved, and people have different worldviews, and it's not just about the organization's objectives or the organization's priorities, or even the coalition's shared views of the world. Once individuals get involved, that's when the problems start. I often find when I've certainly been involved in maybe now I'm talking about maybe I'm the common denominator when I get involved. Oh, right. Well, I think I just answered my question then. Actually,
it's a valid point, though. I think the reality is that egos are always going to factor into situations like this. You've got some people who either for their own purposes or because they've got people that they need to report back to, they put themselves in a position where they need to get something out of it. I think in the best situations, coalitions can acknowledge that and move past it. I think in other situations, unfortunately, coalitions tend to be derailed by it, as you said. I think the other thing that can derail a coalition, no matter how willing the individuals working on it is the appetite of the groups behind them. If my organization suddenly decides that it's not a priority for me to be putting 3 hours a week into communicating with these other people, or if a bandwidth issue comes up and we just don't have the person to spare, then suddenly those coalitions start to falter and ultimately fall apart.
So as an organization, do you need to have a coalition or a partnership strategy, or do you really take them as one-offs and base it on the partner you're evaluating and the need or the goal you're trying to achieve?
I think any organization needs to have a sort of a big picture approach to coalitions. I think you need to know in advance what your posture is and how you enter into coalitions before a specific coalition is on the table. I think if you take it on an ad hoc basis, then you run that risk of really kind of bouncing around from one idea to the next, putting your people in positions where they've got divided loyalties, or worse, they have no real resources to do what they need to. If you've got an overall strategy that says coalitions are valuable, coalitions are important to us, and here's how we approach them, then that puts you in much better stead to assess each one as it comes along.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with many clients, and we've just had the conversation where it is just that. Let's just make a statement. Do we actually want to forget who, forget what the subject matter is? Do we just embrace the principle of coalition as a way of doing business? And I'm often quite surprised that, particularly in the membership environment where we're supposedly all about the collective, be it the collective financial interests, social interests, community interests, the number of individuals and groups for whom partnership is just, or collaboration, or even a loose affiliation is a big no-no. And they can't always articulate why. They just know that that's not what they do. This is who we are. This is how we identify ourselves. We identify ourselves as this, and that's it. We mustn't risk diluting our brand, diluting our
Hmm.
messaging, diluting our control, for want of a better
Yeah.
word. And I think sometimes there's this worry about competition as well. I mean, I always think, well, there's enough of the world to go around. I don't think we need to be worrying uh, about competition. I think we should be, always focusing on the more positive, constructive uh, approach to collaborating. But I understand that people don't always want to buy into the concept. I mean, I was badgering Lisa for about 3 years to do this pod. I was like, "Come on!" She's like, "No, you're far too much competition for me. I couldn't possibly." I'm like, "Yeah, I know, but."
Well, let's be honest though. She's also so busy that it took a global pandemic to slow her down long enough to get time for this.
True, true. I like see
Well,
what he did there. See what he did there. I love that. Yeah,
I like it. I like it.
yeah. I noticed that our producer Andy's keeping his microphone switched off. No one's running to my defense here. Thanks, Andy. Thanks.
Now, Andrew, what you're talking about there is absolutely a theme that runs through a lot of these things. But I think the other challenge that some organizations have that they need to square to determine their posture on coalitions is the question of how do we want to be prepared to deal with being associated with organizations whose missions don't line up with us 100%. What is that threshold that you're able to take on? Frankly, what is the level of notoriety that others in the coalition can have that you're comfortable with and still be a part of it? I've seen some coalitions fall apart because Group A doesn't want to be associated with Group B because of some completely unrelated issue that both of them have as a third tier issue in their set.
Yeah, I mean, I think it points to, I think it points to a broader discussion around risk and the number of boards, number of senior execs who don't discuss their risk appetite. So that even within, or define their risk appetite. So even within internally, there's never enough understanding about, Mike maybe totally risk hungry, just wants to get on with it, loves it. I might be sitting next to him thinking, "Oh my god, he's off the charts. I couldn't possibly." But if we've not had that discussion, it's impossible for us to then externally position ourselves in that risk context. Yeah.
But with that boy, you think of the paranoid board member that Andrew described. I mean, to their credit, there do have to be some times when it's best to go it alone, either for, I don't know, sincerity of message, or focus on purpose. I mean, Mike, aren't there times when it's best to be singular in your pursuit?
Oh, absolutely. I think for a lot of organizations, the lion's share of your efforts probably are going to require you to go it alone. I see coalitions as a great opportunity to kind of spread the resources, to spread the risk in some cases, and to work on issues that maybe aren't necessarily top of sheet for your group, but are still organizational issues that have value. And then certainly there's the other type of coalition that we alluded to earlier, which is the coalitions that are kind of born of crisis or born of a specific need, and that's where you simply don't have the resources within your own group, your own toolkit to be able to do everything you need to do. and recognizing that and being willing to own that and to bring others in requires a certain amount of self-awareness, a certain amount of transparency, and a certain amount of vulnerability.
I'm curious within the context of your own organization, given the vast demographics that you are dealing with in terms of, you're covering the entire industry. I'm curious as to how those principles that we're talking about. I mean, when we're talking about collaboration, partnership, shared interests, competing
Sure.
interests, obviously, I think people will always assume we're talking about external
Hmm.
to the organization. But I'm quite curious as to how you balance those same issues internally, because I mean, there must be, so without, and I would never ask you to break any kind of commercial confidence
No,
or what
no.
have you, but there must be times where you've had to deal with some significant conflict or tensions within the membership.
Oh,
How do you
absolutely.
do
Yeah.
that? How do you how do you get that balance right?
Well, I think it comes down to working to clearly define your organization's mission, to communicate that to your membership, and to be able to, I don't want to say defend, but you want to be able to explain and to convince everyone that you're working with why the places and the issues that you're allocating resources to are both necessary and the best ones. Now we do represent a wide range of interests. Manufacturers don't necessarily see eye to eye with retailers because obviously, what benefits one can sometimes take from the other. But there are issues that bring them together as well. We've had really good luck bringing everyone together around the issues of international tariffs, the China trade issue. For us, that's something that brings manufacturers and retailers to the table together. The pandemic has been another great, I don't want to say a great opportunity, but another great situation for us to find the common thread and to help our people see it. When the store closures and quarantine orders began to go into effect back in March, we immediately set out to make sure that lawmakers and decision makers were remembering the importance of pet care side by side with human health. So we drafted an open letter. We immediately set about building a coalition to support it so that it could be distributed across the country where necessary. And we got 1,200 organizations to sign on from all aspects of the community, even though the subject of the letter was the importance of keeping pet retail and pet healthcare open and active. Distributors, manufacturers, this was a tangential issue for them, but it was something that they saw the need to come together around. So sometimes it's a matter of finding those commonalities, and sometimes it's a matter of convincing people that if you're not working on their particular issue today, that doesn't mean that they're not an important part of your group.
Well, and I think the conflict that Andrew is describing, that's inherent in the nature of a trade association. You're in
Absolutely.
many ways representing competitors from the
Yeah.
beginning
Hmm.
and different aspects of an industry. So I think that internal coalition building and mission focus is
Hmm.
something that every trade association deals with within its own membership. So it is a great kind of sandbox to practice in before going external.
So, do you
Yeah,
think
well,
that actually in a partnership, when we talk about partnerships and collaborations, do you think in a trade association context, members are or the board or whomever is sometimes worried about mission creep as opposed to mission focus? That somehow we're going to go off on a crazy tangent because it's not really our core.
hopefully they are. If the board isn't, I can tell you for damn sure that in most cases the staff is, because
Yeah.
because mission creep is also known as here do more with less.
Ah, yes.
And that's something that those of us on the association staff side have to deal with, even within the scope of our core mission. One of the things that I think really goes a long way toward offsetting that is working with someone to develop a really good strategic plan. and then making sure that as an organization you're regularly reviewing it and you're making sure that the actions and the efforts you undertake stick to it. It's something that we undertook just last year, and I have to say that the board meetings we've had since then have been a very helpful way to make sure that we don't go off chasing new shiny objects without understanding exactly how they fit into our broader context.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
You must have had an amazing facilitator.
The person we worked with on it, she was great about kind of cutting through the noise and getting to the stuff that mattered. And I'm not sure if I should say who it was, but I think you can guess.
I can probably guess. I get a sneaky feeling I know who it was. Yes.
Sneaky
Obviously,
feeling.
I am guessing I wasn't available when you were running the strategic plan.
I doubt we could have afforded to fly you over for it.
Oh, trust me, I'm more than happy to downgrade to business class, honestly, whenever you need me.
You are a giver. That's impressive.
I am. I'm all heart. I really am. So,
one last question before we wrap this up. We talk about strategic plans as providing guardrails. Is there a need for an MOU or a written document, a charter, when you go into these partnerships, or is that heavy-handed?
I think it depends on, again, I hate to keep dancing around these things, but it really does depend on the specific set of circumstances. If it's something that has a very specific focus, then yeah, sometimes putting pen to paper and sketching that out does help keep everyone on the same page. Sometimes your purpose and your effort is one where putting pen to paper is actually a risky idea. So the more that you can do to kind of keep everybody on the same page through regular touches, through ongoing conversations, sometimes you can eliminate the need for that document in the first place.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, all right. So I think it's sorry, I'm just looking at my notes as we've been talking. I've been jotting down a few sort of takeaway points. For me, I love that the three M's approach to. And now I'm sitting there thinking all the collaborations I've entered in the past. I'm thinking, no, it was all just manpower. There was no money. There was no message. Yeah. It was just people. And now I understand why they didn't necessarily, go anywhere.
The trick with the 3 M's is to watch out for the 4th M, and that's the guy who comes in and says he's going to be the mouthpiece.
Ah, right, yeah. I wonder who that would be when I've been collaborating with people. Right, okay. I also love the point that you made, and I'm not sure you used this phrase, but the opportunity costs of not, at the very least, not exploring your appetite for collaboration and partnerships. I think that's a significant takeaway for me, is that, you've at the very least, and as part of your strat planning process, it gives you that opportunity to at least articulate it. Get it out there, discuss it. We don't want to do it. We do want to do it. But at least you've had the chance to discuss. And the opportunity costs of not even doing that are significant in my opinion. But then I'm all about collaboration. Hence the reason we have this transatlantic conversation every week. But I would just like to take the opportunity to thank you for joining us this week, Mike. I've really enjoyed meeting you. I do have one question. One final question. Obviously, we've just connected on LinkedIn. Thank you. That bunny rabbit that you're holding on the steps of the Capitol building, was that just running wild, or did you bring that with you from home?
No, that was Mr. Buttons. We adopted him from the we adopted him from the local shelter, and he was with us. He was a senior bunny when we got him, but we had him for about 2 years, and he has since passed.
Oh.
Yeah,
Did
sorry.
you replace him? Did you replace him?
Well, I don't know that you can ever really replace a pet, but we've succumbed to the lure of the pandemic pet, and my family has brought a new Cocker Spaniel into our house. His name is Scruffles.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'll admit we have a pandemic puppy.
And that's something we've been working on, making sure that people understand the importance of proper pet care as we transition from the pandemic to the new normal and the next normal. And that's something that people can find out more about on our website, which is www.pjac.org.
Fantastic. Excellent.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your day to spend with us. I apologize again for Andrew, but I appreciate your patience with him. Um, we were so glad. I mean, again, you're just such a perfect example of partnerships in action and partnerships for that economy of scale that we talked about. To share costs,
Definitely.
to amplify voice, and to find shared opportunities in such an expansive and diverse industry. So. Thank you so much for being with us today. And we want to thank everyone for joining us. And we hope you'll listen next time and every time. And if you've enjoyed the pod, we invite you to find us wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Let's see, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, we're there. And if you have a top,
Amazon as well. I got an email from Amazon this week saying we want your pod, so it's up there as well. Amazon have started
oh,
doing that.
stop
I'm
it.
just letting you
This is
know.
moving
Just
up in the
saying.
world.
Yeah.
We're moving up. If there's a topic you'd like us to explore, go ahead and tweet us at Association Transformation, or you can email us at hello@yourconsort.com. But until next time, I want to thank my co-host, Mr. Andrew Chamberlain, and my special guest,
Always.
Mike Bober.
Thank
And
you.
we hope you'll stay well, and don't forget to put your members and your mission first. Thanks, everybody.